into your mind, is it? I mean, 60 minutes.
On the money.
14 past 10. Well, you haven't seen your ageing parents maybe in a while and you're going there for a Christmas gathering and it strikes you that maybe they need a bit more support than you remember. What should you do if the conversation turns to, how are we going to help mum and dad? We have Rachel Lane from Aged Care Gurus with you. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Lisa.
How common are these types of conversations this time of the year?
Yeah, a lot of the time, people refer to this as the silly season or the festive season. I refer to it as aged care season for exactly the reason you just said, that family come together for the first time perhaps since last Christmas, and these conversations come up because everyone's in the same place at the same time and they're noticing, hang on a minute, maybe mum or dad isn't moving so well, or maybe they're a bit forgetful, or whatever it might be. They're starting to kind of see, this isn't the same as it was last year. Maybe we need to look at getting some care or support in place to help them.
What can go wrong with these conversations?
Everything can go wrong, and it can go spectacularly wrong. So I guess if I was kind of giving some tips on how to handle this, for the children, I would say you really need to have a with you rather than to you approach in these conversations. For the parents, I would say don't look at these conversations as a slippery slope to a nursing home. The reality is that more than 80% of people who receive aged care services do not receive that aged care in a nursing home. So sometimes people like to shut these conversations down very quickly by saying things like, I'm
not moving.
Yeah, you can take me out of here in a pine box, or if you ever put me into aged care, I'll come back and haunt you, and all these. It's really not conducive. And the reality is that the sooner you have these conversations, the more options that you've got. Most people, unfortunately, still deal with aged care in a crisis. So a crisis tends to be a fall or some other medical event happens that lands the older person in hospital, and the hospital then say, listen, they can't go home. You've got 3 days, 4 days to come up with a list of 3, 4 aged care homes, and the first one to take them, that's where they go. Now, at this time of the year, a lot of the families who do plan for aged care, they've got loved ones having a respite stay in the aged care. So
what's that, respite stay?
So it's a temporary stay. It's like a holiday. So they stay there for 2 or 3 weeks so that the carers can get a break. So the carers go and visit family, friends, whatever it is that they've got on, and mum or dad or both have a stay in the aged care home for a couple of weeks. So aged care homes at this time of year in particular tend to be very
busy.
Full.
Yes.
Yeah, very busy. And so getting in can be very difficult. The other thing is that even at other times of the year, they can be full, there can be waiting lists. And if it's not an aged care home that you want to move to, let's say it's a retirement village, you can find waiting lists that are literally years long. You might be waiting 3 or 4 years if there's a particular retirement village that you want to move into. In aged care at the moment, we're hearing of waiting lists of between 6 and 12 months in some areas. So this idea that, we'll deal with it when we have to deal with it, you really are narrowing your options. The other thing is that if you plan early, you can have those respite stays, right? You can be one of those families who plan ahead, and those respite stays are invaluable research in terms of, do you like the food? Do you like the activities? Do you like the other residents? Do you like the staff? All of those things that if the time comes that you decide, actually, I need to make a permanent move, you've already done all of that. You've already kind of worked out what you want and, importantly, what you don't want.
You're listening to Rachel Lane from Aged Care Gurus with Lisa Leong. We're doing On the Money on ABC Radio. It is 18 past 10 at the moment. You mentioned that it's not necessarily about aged care either. There might be some options there. So what are some of the other options that people might not be thinking about?
Yeah, so the most common option, if you like, is home care. And there's sort of 2 programs that still run. There's Commonwealth Home Support Program and there's home care packages. And the waiting list at the moment for a home care package at the higher levels is about 12 months. And the waiting list just to get the assessment, to get the home care package, is around 3 or 4 months. It does depend on where you live. So that's why I say, sometimes people have this idea that once you start talking about aged care, or once you pop your hand up and say, okay, I need it, that it's going to be instantaneous, or that, someone's going to come on Monday and start providing you with care or services. It doesn't work like that. I always say to people, it's not Uber Eats. Like, this is not, I think they have that kind of idea in their mind that it's going to really move quickly. And it's not. So home care services can be fantastic. And sometimes people think of home care just, well, not just, but when they think of home care...
They think of the bells and whistles. But what could home care be?
Yeah, well, it could be home modifications, so that, it makes your bathroom safe, or it makes your kitchen safe, or it makes your backyard accessible, because there might be steps that need to be replaced with a ramp.
What's the eligibility for something like that?
So you need to have an assessment. That's the starting point. So if anyone is thinking about aged care, whether it's for themselves or a loved one, the starting point is to contact My Aged Care. And they will go through some questions with you over the phone to work out which home care services you might be eligible for, and organise an assessment, normally in your own home, face-to-face. That assessment, it's free, it doesn't cost anything, it's easy. You can have a loved one there if you don't feel comfortable being on your own. You can have an interpreter there. They can organise an interpreter for you if you need that. It's really designed to work out, what do you need to continue living as independently as possible. Now, where people go wrong is they get dressed up to the nines, they put on all, their makeup, they really, and then they say, I don't need any help, I'm fine. Now, that doesn't help, right? If you're really struggling, for example, to do the shopping, and you're saying, no, I don't need any help, I'm fine. Or if you're really struggling to get dressed or have a shower, and you're saying to the assessor, no, I don't need any help, I'm fine, guess what they think? They think you don't need any help, you're fine.
Why are people doing this? Is this our sort of nature to try and mask a little bit? And
absolutely, it's pride.
Embarrassment.
I think it's a very Australian kind of thing that that we don't like to ask for help or admit that there are things that we can't do.
Maybe
for
that's
ourselves.
why this conversation is so difficult in the first place, is when you're saying to your elderly parent, oh, should we talk about some help? And they usually say, I don't need help.
Yes.
I'm fine. So That's where it starts.
That's where it starts. So, and, sometimes care can be a 4-letter word. It really does have quite a polarising impact on some people, the word care. Sometimes you're better off using the word support, because care can sound like something
condescending.
And something that's being done to you. Support sounds like help to do the things that you want to do and you can do for yourself. You know what I mean? It's got a different vibe.
Rachel Lane, I have a text here from Anonymous. I live on my own. I don't have family. How do I navigate through home care?
Yeah, so like I said, the starting point is to ring My Aged Care, and I would ring them as soon as you think, like, Monday, tomorrow, and organise for that assessment. They will then, so when you do the assessment, what comes out the other end is the My Support Plan, and that's basically all of the services that you are eligible to receive government funding for. And the way I like to think about that, and what I tell people to kind of visualise that as, is a passport. So the aim of the game when you're getting your assessment is to get approved for as many services as possible, because if you never use it, it doesn't matter. But if down the track you decide that you want to use it, so what happens is people can advocate very heavily to just get home care services. And they'll say, no, I'm never going to have a respite stay in an aged care home. I'm never moving into an aged care home. And of course, the assessors say that's not needed, it's not wanted, because people have the right to say what they do and don't want. So, but then down the track, something changes. A carer might go on holidays, or the care needs are greater and they need to have that short-term stay, for argument's sake. They're not approved. They need to get reassessed when that time comes. So think of that assessment as a passport and get approved for every service that you might possibly need. And then if you use it, great. And if you don't use it, there's no harm done.
Think you're on, is it?
On the money.
With Lisa Leong and Rachel Lane from Aged Care Gurus, we've been talking about a difficult conversation about caring for your ageing parents and whether we're talking about aged care or home care packages. Simon has called in on 1300 222 774. Good morning, Simon.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Look, my wife applied for assistance on this program about 7 months ago. Haven't received any help yet. Haven't received any indication of when we might receive help. And I'm sort of wondering, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to work out 12 months in advance. At this time, as I get older and I deteriorate, I'll need this assistance. Because you can't do that. You're not actually allowed to apply for it until you actually need it. And then when you actually need it,
then you've got the waiting list.
Then you've got to wait. My wife has a bad neck, which is constantly deteriorating and finds her housework and things to do more and more difficult. And they've been sitting on their bum for 7 months doing absolutely nothing while her situation gets worse. By the time they get round to doing anything, she'll need more assistance because they've done nothing.
Now,
We'll
Rachel's nodding, Simon. What are your reflections on this?
Yeah, you're so right, Simon. Obviously, you can't apply until you need help, and that's why I'm encouraging people at those first signs of somebody needing help and support to arrange the assessment. The government did release in the MyEFO this week, the mid-year economic financial outlook, that there would be 7,600 additional home care packages on top of the 24,000 that were announced in the budget. But we have got a really big problem when it comes to home care. The aim of the aged care reforms, which start on the 1st of July next year, is to reduce that maximum waiting time. So at the moment, like I said, it's more than 12 months, which is just, as Simon says, it's ridiculous. And really the unsung heroes in all of this are what they call the informal carers, the spouses, the children, the next door neighbours, the friends, the church communities who are doing everything that they can to support our senior Australians while they wait to get access to the care and services they need. So I completely hear what you're saying, Simon. I do hope that the reforms do reduce these wait times because, we had a Royal Commission about this and the terrible outcomes that happen and Simon's exactly right, when people don't get the care and support they need in a timely fashion, then the care and support they need becomes even greater. So we need to get on to this and enable people to live with as much assistance as they need as soon as they need it.
What did you say changes then?
So next year in July, the 1st of July, the aged care reforms are coming in. That will change the home care program. There'll be a single assessment that applies to all aged care services. There'll be a number of changes, but one of the aims of the introduction of the aged care reforms is to reduce home care package waiting times to be a maximum of 3 months. Now, I should say that when they were asked about that, they clarified that the waiting time was after assessment. Now, at the moment, we know that a lot of people are waiting, and I don't know, Simon, if your wife has had her assessment or if she's waited 6 months and still hasn't been assessed. But that's the whole thing. You wait for the assessment, and then once you're assessed, it's at the moment up to another 12 months for the actual home care package to start. It's just crazy.
On ABC Radio, it is 10:30 at the moment. Robin has written in to write, what about supported accommodation? It's the best thing in the world. I've been here for 25 weeks. I'm totally independent, but someone else cooks and cleans. What's that?
Yeah, so look, I'm guessing it normally means a serviced apartment in a retirement village. And you're right, Robin, they can be a fantastic solution. So it really can enable people to have the best of both worlds. So you have, the privacy of living in your own apartment with a door that you can close and all of those sorts of things. You have your own bedroom, lounge room, dining space, kitchen, bathroom, all of that. but you get care and support for the things that you can't do or the things that you don't want to do anymore. So that can absolutely be a great solution. I think when we're talking about home care and the fact that more than 80% of people who receive aged care get it in their own home, I don't think we should misconstrue that as everyone staying in the family home. So that home could be the family home, but it might be an apartment, it might be a retirement village, it might be a granny flat arrangement, it might be a land lease community. It could be, 100 different types of accommodation. I think sometimes when people hear home care, they instantly think family home, but in reality, a lot of family homes are not safe. Or need significant modifications to make them safe to deliver aged care services. Whereas if you're moving into something like what Robin's moved into, they've actually built that with the idea that care is going to be delivered into it. And a lot of the new granny flats do that too.
Rachel Lane, another question here from a texter. How do you get more care as needed? Do you get another assessment?
Yeah, that's right. So as your care needs increase, that's right. So again, that's why I always start with try and get every box ticked, because if you need to wait to get a higher level of home care package, then you might need to use respite to give your carers a break. So get every box ticked. If you never need to use it, no problem, no harm done. It doesn't cost you anything. But if you need it, the last thing you want to do is wait for another assessment.
And what happens to the people who are already kind of in the system, like in Simon's case, getting assessed, or Simon's wife's case? What will happen? Are they stuck in a way because they're not quite in the new system that you're talking about for the 1st of July?
No, look, I think with those targets that they're talking about with, 3 months, I think that's something that they will move to over a couple of years. It's not going to be that the 1st of July hits and all of a sudden they're going to be able to, start delivering these things quickly or more efficiently than what they do at the moment.
Another texter here. My mother won't sign the required papers for the home care provider, open brackets, due to stubbornness, close brackets. Am I able to sign the paperwork on her behalf? ? I'm struggling to cope looking after her without help. That's from Heather.
Yeah, and Heather, carer burnout is a real thing. So there's a fabulous resource that the government provide called Carers Gateway, and I'd really encourage you to look into that because they do provide some wonderful support services. In terms of being able to sign the paperwork, that's really a legal question. It's going to depend on whether or not you have the appropriate, whether it's guardianship or power of attorney that you need.
This one, a friend's mother hid the 4-wheel walker and refuses care when help arrives. Oh, now to the back of the queue.
Yeah, and honestly, that's, so now that we have a system that is very much built around sort of the person receiving care and their rights, they do have the right to say no. And they do have the right to say what they do and don't want. And the assessors and the care providers have to listen to that. And unfortunately, some people do make decisions that are not necessarily always in their best interest. And it can be really distressing for people. I completely get it. Sometimes, unfortunately...
So they won't listen to the carer?
Sometimes they won't listen to anyone. So sometimes
this is the assessor though. The assessor won't listen to the carer going, oh, by the way, the frame's been hidden, and that's why I say it's always good to have the carer at the assessment, because sometimes the person being assessed, like I said, they put on their best outfit and their lipstick or, whatever it is, and I don't need any help, thank you, dear, and, kind of paint the carer as I don't know what they're talking about. So it's very good to have the carer there to be able to just quietly say, actually, mum or dad can't have a shower, or actually mum or dad won't take their medication without someone to prompt them, or they can't do the grocery shopping, or whatever it might be, just to shed light on that day-to-day help and support that's actually needed. Sometimes the older person doesn't, when it's family who are helping them, they don't necessarily recognise that it's help. They don't actually stop and think, I can't do these things for myself anymore, because the lawn gets mowed and the shopping gets done and, And Damien has called through from Doncaster. Hello, Damien.
Hi, how you going?
What's your experience, Damien?
I think the whole system is an absolute joke. I did this for my father recently. By the time I found out about it, because he'd been assessed, but they hadn't done anything. And apparently it's because the system is so convoluted. They have to put in, my parents have to put in their pension details every year with Services Australia. So then to go to my aged care, they use an assessment from, they use the assessment system from Centrelink. So Centrelink dug up information from God knows where, which was all wrong. And I don't know what happens, but I rang Centrelink, made an appointment to see someone, questioned them all about government policy and said, I want to know what the policy is. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm used to the Tax Act. But finally, I just said to them, well, over a period of a week of toing and froing, all the right paperwork was everywhere that it needed to be. And I said, well, what are you banking on? The policy is that in terms of looking after our young and old, this is all balderdash. Are you hoping that they die before you have to pay out? And sure enough, Dad got approved within about 3 days and then died a week later. We got one session. And Mum's 90, Mum's still around, Dad was 93, Mum's 91, and, you know, the whole system, we seem to be able to look after everybody else, but not our older people.
Yeah.
So,
Look,
and I come from a big family, so there's lots of people to help. But the system banks on everyone else providing the help and not the government.
I think it's important to bust a little bit of a myth that some people think, which is that whether or not you're eligible for a home care package depends on whether or not you get a pension. So those two things are not linked. Your eligibility for a home care package and the level of home care package you can receive is purely based on how much care and support you need. How much you pay towards that home care package is means tested by Services Australia. Now, they have, and this was part of a task force design that I was actually a part of. They created a system where people who are already getting a pension, they can use the pension information, because you're meant to notify Centrelink within 2 weeks of any change to your circumstances. So the pension information should always be up to date. They can use that information to work out what you need to contribute towards your home care package. And that was really designed to stop people filling in paperwork that they didn't need to fill in, and that would potentially become a barrier to them in wanting to access a home care package. But it's important to know that those two things are completely separate. Your care needs is what determines whether or not you're eligible for a home care package. Your means, your assets and your income is what determines how much you need to pay.
And John has called through on 1300 222 774 with a quick question for you, Rachel. John.
Yes. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Yes, I'm 78. I have no health issues whatsoever, no physical disabilities. Does that mean I cannot or should not bother apply for home health care or the aged care thing?
John, you can't apply unless you need those services, because you're not able to do them for yourself. Otherwise, to be honest, I'd apply. I wouldn't mind having...
That's the point, because you never know.
But then you are saying, though, Rachel, to apply a little bit earlier than when it's absolutely necessary. Correct. So that's a hard one, isn't it?
It is. And this is the thing. When you have a big event that leads to someone having care needs that didn't have care needs before, so, you know, a stroke, a fall, you know, something like that, then obviously there's not much you can do to plan in advance for anything like that. That's just something that it happens. And to be honest with you, when something like that happens, typically what ends up happening is you're in the hospital, and while you're in the hospital or going through a transitional care program, you get an assessment done while you're in that kind of system. Sure. It's more the people that are noticing that mum or dad or both are needing more care and support, and they still haven't applied, that I'm talking to when I say apply now, because this idea that you're going to leave it until you really, really need it, and then when you really, really need it, it's going to be there. It's not.
Yeah.
So apply now, knowing that as I've lost the name, but as one of the previous callers said, the care needs become greater over time. So apply now when the care needs are there, but they're not very high, knowing that by the time the assessors come, it could be 3 or 4 months down the track, and by the time the actual home care package comes, it could be another year down the track. Plan ahead to the best of your ability. I completely agree with everyone who's saying that the system is broken. It absolutely is, but not working with it isn't going to help get a better outcome.
Because if I applied, an assessor came to see me. They said, "What's wrong with you? You're perfectly healthy."
Well, they wouldn't even come to see you. They wouldn't even come to see you, John. They'd take. So when you ring My Aged Care and someone else,
we've got the number here.
1-800-200-422.
There you go, Mary.
So if you ring My Aged Care, they're going to ask you some, if you like, screening questions, and they'll work out very quickly that you don't need any care or support.
But John, it's wonderful to hear that you're in full health. Thank you everyone for all your calls today. And Rachel Lane, you'll be with us in the new year.
I hope so.
We'd
There's
love
going to be a lot of changes.
Yeah, so I think what we will do is we'll say ta-ta for now, but we'd love you back early in the new year. And why don't we go through some of those really big changes that people need to navigate next year? Is there anything we should do right now, though, before the 1st of January hits? Tell us now.
Yeah, the big change that's happening on the 1st of January is that they're increasing the market price cap for residential aged care beds from $550,000 to $750,000. So if you are in respite at the moment and you're thinking, hey, I might want to stay here forever, moving now rather than after the 1st of January could save you $200,000.
Thank you, Rachel Lane there from Aged Care Gurus, and she'll be back with you next year with her wonderful strategies